Welcome, everyone. Ready to dive into the world of intuition?
Absolutely. Always fascinating.
We're exploring excerpts today from The Intuitive Mind, Profiting from the Power of Your Sixth Sense, trying to uncover how these two minds, the intuitive and analytical ones we all have, really shape how we see things and the choices we make.
Yeah, almost like having, an invisible advisor always whispering in your ear.
Interesting.
But it's up to us to figure out, is it real wisdom or just noise?
That's a good point. The book talks about this intuitive mind as this ancient radar system,
Yeah.
right? It's fascinating to think about, like it's working under the surface, influencing us without us even knowing it.
Makes you wonder how much of what we do every day is really driven by these feelings, these subliminal feelings, rather than just pure logic and thought. This radar system, it's fast, it's driven by feelings and focused on the big picture, really different from that slower, more deliberate analytical mind.
So is it like this constant back and forth, this tug of war between the two? Who wins out in the end?
Not necessarily a tug of war, I'd say. More like dance partners, sometimes in sync, other times, stepping on each other's toes a bit.
Yeah.
Take the case of Joe from the BBC documentary Brain Story. After surgery actually separated the connections in his brain between the hemispheres, he basically ended up with two separate minds, each one capable of thinking and doing things on its own. Can you imagine seeing two different pictures, like literally at the same time, in your mind?
Wow, that's incredible. Really shows how separate these two minds can be. The book actually mentions a study from the Max Planck Institute where decisions were already being made by the intuitive mind a full 7 seconds before the conscious mind even knew what was going on.
When you stop and think about it, that's amazing. It almost makes you question free will, right? Decisions happening before we even know it.
Right.
But what's so interesting is it doesn't mean logic has no part to play. The analytical mind can come in later, examine those gut feelings more closely.
So when is it best to just trust that initial gut feeling versus, really slowing down and analyzing things?
Well, the book points to a few key areas where intuition really excels. Quickly sensing potential problems, making those fast decisions when you're in familiar territory, or recognizing patterns in complex information. Even just getting a feel for someone's character, even if you've only interacted a little bit. Like in Malcolm Gladwell's Blink and that idea of thin slicing, we can make surprisingly accurate judgments from just a tiny bit of information.
That reminds me of like Howard Schultz and that feeling he described, that shaking feeling he had about the Starbucks idea, or Ray Kroc and how he just knew his gut instinct about McDonald's. Those were huge decisions made on feelings, not spreadsheets.
It's like those lingering feelings, they act as a kind of internal guidance system.
Interesting.
Think back to a time when you had a strong gut feeling yourself. What did it feel like? How long did it stick around? Figuring out the difference between just fleeting emotions versus genuine intuition, that's key.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It can be tricky.
But wouldn't it be, I don't know, kind of dangerous to base all our decisions on just gut feelings? There got to be times when our intuition, leads us in the wrong direction.
Oh, absolutely. The book, it actually calls these the enemies of intuition, logical fallacies, biases that we have, stereotypes, wishful thinking. Our brains are wired to look for shortcuts, and sometimes that leads us to these errors in thinking.
Like that Linda the bank teller example, right? Where they give all those vivid details about her social activism, and people just assume she's got to be both a bank teller and a Yoseminist, even though, statistically, that's less likely.
Yeah, it's like our minds, they crave a good story, a narrative that makes sense, so we fill in the blanks, and sometimes we get it wrong. And that's why, balancing those two minds, that's so important. It's this cognitive ambidexterity, being able to use both sides of your brain, your gut, and your logic.
So it's not about ignoring your intuition, but more like, I don't know, refining it.
Exactly. It's about noticing those flashes of intuition, recognizing their strengths and weaknesses, and learning to use them effectively. Alongside your analytical thinking, of course. It's interesting, actually. Research shows that entrepreneurs tend to have this more balanced thinking style compared to, say, accountants or actors.
Makes sense. Entrepreneurs, they need both, right? The vision to see possibilities, but also that analytical mind to actually build the business. But where does empathy fit into all this picture of the two minds?
Well, this is where mirror neurons come in. These fascinating brain cells, they actually fire both when we do something A and D, when we just watch someone else doing the same thing.
So when I watch you reach for that book, the same neurons in my brain fire as if I'm reaching for it. That's kind of creepy if you think about it.
It is kind of airy, isn't it? The theory is that these mirror neurons, they're actually the basis of empathy. They allow us to understand other people's feelings and intentions. It's like we're simulating their actions in our own brains.
So it's like our brains are running this like virtual reality program of what it's like to be in someone else's shoes.
Exactly. There was even this study where people watched someone drink water and it actually triggered their own thirst-related neurons. Imagine feeling thirsty just by watching someone take a sip.
Wow, that's wild. It really makes you realize how interconnected we all are, even at this like neurological level.
Hmm.
So does this mean, would you say that becoming more intuitive can also make us more empathetic?
It's definitely a possibility. As we become more attuned to our own internal signals, those feelings, we might also become more sensitive to the subtle cues that other people are giving off.
So how can we use this understanding of these two minds to actually improve the judgments we make and decisions in our daily lives?
Well, one of the key takeaways is to recognize those aha moments, those flashes of insight, but not just blindly follow them. It's about pausing, examining those gut feelings, weighing the evidence, and then deciding whether to actually act on them.
So it's not about intuition versus analysis. It's about using them together
Uh-huh.
effectively.
Right. It's about developing what the book calls intuitive intelligence. It's not just about having those insights, but understanding where they come from, what biases they might have, and when to trust them.
I imagine this is especially important in leadership roles, right?
Absolutely. The book dives into the concept of intuitive leadership, where leaders use both their intuition and their analytical minds to make decisions and to connect with their teams on a deeper level.
So it's not just about making the most logical decision, but also understanding the human element, the emotional side of things.
Exactly. These leaders, they often talk about their intuition as a kind of knowing, a feeling that guides them. They might not be able to explain your choices, but they trust that inner voice.
That makes me think of leaders who just like seem to have a knack for seeing problems before they happen, or just knowing what motivates people.
It's like they've developed this like sixth sense for navigating the human side of things. But it's important to remember this isn't some magical gift. It's something that's cultivated over years of experience, of observation, of learning from mistakes.
So it's not just being born with it, it's something you can work on, you can develop over time. Are there specific things people can do to cultivate this intuitive leadership?
The book talks about the importance of mindfulness and self-reflection. By quieting the mind, quieting that constant chatter of the analytical mind, it creates space for those subtler, those intuitive insights to come through.
So things like meditation, that could actually make you a better leader. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely an area that more and more people are interested in. And it's not just about individual practices either. Creating a culture of open communication, where people feel comfortable sharing different perspectives, that can also help foster what you might call collective intuition, where a group's insights, combined lead to these breakthroughs that no one could have come up with on their own.
That's a powerful idea. But like we've been talking about, intuition isn't perfect. What about the ethics of relying on gut feelings, especially when you're talking about leadership decisions that affect other people?
That's a really important point. The book really emphasizes the importance of a strong moral compass. Having a set of core values that guide your decisions, whether they come from intuition or from analysis.
So it's about making sure your gut feelings line up with your ethics, your values, not just, letting your gut lead you down a bad path.
Exactly. And that takes effort, a conscious effort to examine your biases, to seek out different perspectives, and to be willing to challenge your own assumptions. It's about being aware of the limits of intuition, especially when your choices have an impact on other people.
But even with, those safeguards in place, it can still feel risky to rely on intuition, especially in a world that often puts so much emphasis on data and logic.
That's true, but ignoring intuition altogether can be just as risky. It's about finding that balance, recognizing that both intuition and analysis have their strengths and their weaknesses.
Though it's not choosing one over the other, it's learning to use both effectively.
Exactly. That's where that idea of cognitive ambidexterity really comes into play. Being able to shift between intuitive and analytical thinking, depending on the situation. Sometimes you need that quick intuitive leap, and other times you need that slower, more analytical approach.
It's like we're finally realizing that intuition isn't this magical thing, but like a real skill you can develop and actually use in how you make decisions.
It's about time, right? It's time we recognized, the full range of human intelligence, realizing that both the logical side and the intuitive side, they both play a huge part in how we live our lives. This shift, it could really change how we approach so many things, from how we teach to how we lead to just how we interact with each other every day.
So for those listening who are intrigued by this idea of using their intuition, what are some things they can actually do, some steps they can take?
Well, the book suggests a mix of mindfulness, actually practicing and reflecting. Start by just noticing those gut feelings.
Mm.
Pay attention to what you feel in your body, the thoughts that pop into your head, and just the overall sense you get. It's like tuning into your own internal compass.
I imagine it takes some practice to really tell the difference between emotions that come and go and those deeper, more intuitive nudges.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Another powerful technique is to do things that spark your imagination, your creativity. Think brainstorming, free writing, getting out in nature, or even listening to music that inspires you. It's about giving yourself that space for those aha moments to come to the surface.
Those moments when, like, the answer just seems to appear out of nowhere.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of reflection.
Mm.
Take time to think back on decisions you've made, especially ones where your intuition played a role. Ask yourself, what went well? What could I have done differently? How did my gut feeling guide me? It's about learning from your experiences and refining that intuitive judgment.
So it's this constant cycle, right?
Yeah.
Noticing, practicing, reflecting. This whole idea of intuition is fascinating. But it does make me wonder about its role in things like creativity and innovation.
Intuition is really a wellspring for creativity. Think about those bursts of inspiration that seem to come out of nowhere. That's often your intuitive mind at work, making those connections and creating those new ideas.
It's like our intuition helps us see beyond what's right in front of us, and that leads to those big discoveries, those innovations.
Exactly. And as we move towards a future where, AI and automation are becoming more and more common, these uniquely human skills, things like creativity, intuition, and emotional intelligence, they're going to be more important than ever.
Because those are the things that machines, they can't replicate.
Right.
Those are the things that let us think outside the box and connect with each other on a deeper level.
Absolutely. And that brings us to this fascinating concept of collective intuition. The book suggests that groups can actually tap into a kind of shared intuitive wisdom, when they work together openly and respectfully. Imagine what's possible when a whole team combines those intuitive insights.
It's like the whole becomes greater than the parts. And that leads to breakthroughs that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Exactly. Things like group meditation or even brainstorming sessions, they can actually help this collective intuition process along. It allows the team to really draw on that wellspring of shared wisdom and creativity.
This has been amazing, exploring the power of these two minds. It's really given me a whole new way of thinking about how our minds work and the potential that each of us has.
It's been a pleasure. The intuitive mind, it's powerful and often overlooked. I really encourage everyone listening to keep exploring this fascinating area. Pay attention to your gut feelings, cultivate that intuitive intelligence, and just embrace the extraordinary potential that you have with both of your minds working together.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore this world of intuition. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep trusting your gut.